We think that the GPS system is there to tell us where we are, but that is not the most important thing GPS does. It accurately tells us what time it is. Most people assume a GPS blackout just means pulling out a paper map. That is a fatal misunderstanding. Orbiting 12,000 miles above us is a constellation of atomic clocks. They broadcast a single invisible pulse, one beat every single second. That faint metronome synchronizes the global banking system. It aligns the cellular networks. It steadies the alternating current of the power grid. If that celestial clock stops ticking, the trading floors begin freezing themselves. Within 12 hours, your local cell tower starts cannibalizing its own signal. By day 3, automated maritime shipping grinds to a halt because cities do not eat money, they eat logistics, or food to be exact. This is the architecture of a 72-hour synchronization collapse that can ultimately destroy our modern civilization. And it proves the one thing this channel keeps coming back to: we are one spectacular event away from extinction. The modern world treats GPS as a consumer convenience, a tool to navigate traffic or track a delivery. The National Institute of Standards and Technology sees it very differently. NIST Technical Note 2189 labels this network an unsolved national security vulnerability. The danger lives in the physical hardware. A GPS satellite is essentially a flying atomic clock. It continuously broadcasts two pieces of data: its precise orbital location and the exact instant the signal left the transmitter. That signal is broadcast at only modest power, on the order of a household light bulb. Then it has to cross 12,000 miles of space and atmosphere. By the time it reaches a rooftop antenna, it is almost unimaginably faint, weaker in fact than the background radio noise surrounding it. Receivers dig that buried whisper out of the noise. They calculate the time of flight to fix a location, and crucially, they use it to generate a physical electrical pulse. One pulse every second. That pulse disciplines the local hardware clocks. It drags them back into microsecond synchronization constantly. Every major industry leans on that correction. We built a global economy on the assumption the pulse will never stop, but a signal that faint is terrifyingly easy to drown out. A cheap jammer, a solar flare, a spoofed signal, and the instant the metronome goes quiet, the digital heartbeat of civilization begins to skip. Hour 0. The satellite transmission drops. Receivers instantly lose their celestial lock. The whole system defaults to what engineers call holdover mode. Local oscillators take over the timing. These are physical components, quartz or higher-grade rubidium, and because they are physical, they are flawed. Vibration, age, and microscopic temperature swings make them drift. They run a hair too fast or a hair too slow. Now, the official line is reassuring here. Holdover, the spec sheets say, buys you hours, sometimes days. That number is a best case, written for one pristine clock sitting alone on a lab bench. In the field, the cheap end of the network starts slipping in minutes, and it fails first. The first casualty is the global financial sector. High-frequency trading fires off millions of orders a second. Europe's MiFID II rules demand timestamps accurate to within 100 microseconds. Once the clocks drift past that line, cryptographic verification fails. The timestamps become legally and mathematically invalid, so the algorithms do not glitch, they do not improvise, they execute a hard-coded regulatory shutdown. Trading servers in London, New York, and Tokyo brick themselves on purpose. They freeze to avoid committing systemic fraud. The banking system paralyzes itself to survive. Trillions sit frozen in a digital void. The financial world can afford a hard stop. It is built for one. Physical infrastructure does not get that luxury. By hour 12, the communication grid begins to fracture. Modern cellular networks run on time division duplexing. It is the backbone of 4G and 5G. Towers transmit and receive in alternating microscopic slots. They share a single frequency by taking turns. That choreography demands brutal precision. The hardware tolerates a deviation of just 1.5 microseconds. But base stations do not carry atomic clocks. They run cheap, mass-produced quartz. The industry will tell you those oscillators hold sync long enough to ride out any outage. I think it will be the opposite. Quartz at that price point is the single weakest link in the chain, and it drifts out fast. As it drifts, the transmit slots start to overlap. Towers broadcast while their neighbors are trying to listen. The signals collide in mid-air. Engineers call it inter-cell interference. In plain terms, the network cannibalizes itself. Data rates collapse to zero across entire metro areas. An EMT dispatcher tries to route an ambulance to a cardiac arrest. The terminal on the dashboard will not load the coordinates. Millions fall into a total communication blackout, cut off from emergency services, completely isolated. A dropped 911 call is a local tragedy, but a far larger, continent-spanning system is about to go blind. Hour 24. The most dangerous machine on Earth starts to wobble. The alternating current grid is not a storage tank. It is a live, kinetic balancing act. Power travels thousands of miles in continuous sine waves. To share load between regions, those waves must line up perfectly. Operators watch that alignment with phasor measurement units. They sample voltage and phase angle 60 times a second. IEEE standards hold that hardware to 2.6 microseconds. Strip away the satellite timestamp and the wide area monitoring system goes blind. The plants keep burning coal and splitting atoms, but the control rooms can no longer see the microscopic phase imbalances. Tie two regional grids together, even slightly out of phase, and it is fatal. It is not a tripped breaker, it is a continental short circuit. The surge blows transformers apart. Physically, operators abandon the modern interfaces and fall back to legacy SCADA. They are balancing a nation's power supply half-blind. A single downed line can no longer be cleanly isolated. The odds of a cascading blackout climb with every passing hour. The grid survives on borrowed time and blind luck, and while it teeters, the physical world stops moving entirely. Hour 48. The automated ports freeze in place. Modern terminals run on differential satellite positioning. Gantry cranes and robotic carriers move 100-ton loads to the centimeter, kill the telemetry, and the robotics trigger immediate emergency stops. At the port of Los Angeles, dispatchers attempt a manual override. They need one container: critical medical supplies. The yard holds tens of thousands of identical steel boxes. Without digital routing, finding that single box is a mathematical impossibility. Just-in-time logistics hits a hard wall. Refrigerated food rots inside powerless holding queues. The official estimate puts the loss around $3 billion a day. That figure only counts the cargo. It never prices in the insulin that does not reach a pharmacy, or the week of trust that never comes back. By hour 72, the collapse reaches street level. People line up to pull paper cash from ATMs. The machines have power, but the screens throw cryptographic error codes. Everyone assumes the problem is spatial. It is temporal. Secure financial packets need perfectly synced timestamps to finish the encryption handshake. The ATM's internal clock has drifted out of phase with the central clearinghouse. The mainframe reads the mismatch as a hostile attack and rejects the withdrawal. People with money in the bank are locked out of their own capital. By the end of day 3, the last failsafes give out. Even the top-grade rubidium clocks in Tier 1 data centers drift past tolerance. The thin illusion of modern stability shatters completely. Security agencies published these warnings for decades. The vulnerability was never a classified secret. Engineers even drew up the backup, a ground-based radio network called E-LARAN. But governments and corporations let the project die. Resilient physical infrastructure costs real capital. The satellite signal was free, so we chose cheap efficiency over systemic survival. We outsourced our civilization to fragile hardware 12,000 miles up. And here is the part I want you to sit with. Every confident forecast about how this plays out, with the tidy timelines and the "it could never cascade that far" reasoning, always comes from the same experts who never saw the last disaster coming. History keeps proving we are horrible at predicting catastrophe, so when I push these timelines to the worst case, I am not being dramatic. I am correcting for a century of being wrong in the optimistic direction. We built an amazing machine, then we tethered it to a 50-watt whisper fighting through 12,000 miles of radiation, a system so fragile a single solar flare could blind all of it. And when the logistics freeze, the truth becomes undeniable. We are always one spectacular event away from extinction.